Hey there, I'm Mr. Terry, high school history teacher. Welcome back to another History Teacher X video. All right, today's video, I saw that my friend Chris from Vlogging Through History had covered it, and I was surprised I had not seen this because this is right up my alley. I love this kind of stuff. The video is called Every Historical Misconception Debunked in 10 Minutes, and this is by the Pain Explainer. And I love these kind of videos because sometimes I get to talk about those misconceptions and potentially learn about them myself. So of course I cannot keep perpetuating those as a teacher. All right, the original video is linked down below though. Make sure you support that. By the way, I also want to know what are some other historical misconceptions. Let me know down below. All right, let's check this video out. By the way, if you are a student and been coming to my channel because you've kind of been in school mode, your school year is ending soon. I hope, though, I'm going to see you. I make content all year. I'll be doing it all over the summer. It's also when I try to do some other fun type of things. So hopefully I've earned your sub. Allow notifications, please, because I am finding out definitely that since I post so much, I basically post every day. It is very easy to not see my videos in just the recommended feed. If you're in the subscriptions feed, okay, that's pretty good. But I mean, I post every day. I know you're not going to watch every day's videos. If you do, thank you so much. But enable notifications because you're probably not seeing stuff. And again, my goal has been to get something out every single day, whether it's a short or a full video, whatever. And been doing a lot more original content. I hope to continue that more and try to make fun videos around maybe 8-10 minutes or something like that. And we put out a bunch recently. If you see a video basically that doesn't say History Teacher Reacts to it, it should be an original one. And I've had some help from some editors that have been helping me kind of with time and adding graphics and just trying to make, more fun with it, more different types of content. Here we go.
Cleopatra wasn't genetically Egyptian.
Right,
she was
Greek.
of Macedonian Greek descent, a member of the Ptolemaic dynasty established by one of Alexander the Great's generals.
Yeah.
Roman Emperor...
True. Yeah, so Alexander, he dies, and they had already conquered Persia, Egypt, and Greece, and his generals all basically broke up the empire. So, yeah, so it's going to go on for a few centuries, actually, and Cleopatra, she'll be the last pharaoh, but yeah, basically a Greek.
Member of the Ptolemaic dynasty established by one of Alexander the Great's generals. Roman Emperor Nero did not fiddle while Rome was burning.
Right.
This story likely originates from later historians to depict Nero's alleged neglect and misrule. Nero may have played the lyre, but it's uncertain if he did so during the fire.
Yeah, it's not that necessarily he doesn't play the lyre, but I've also heard that he actually may not have even been in Rome at that time. But he was also not liked, which future historians, if your legacy isn't very good, you're going to get not looked upon as well. And yeah, he wasn't. So it fit. It also didn't help that he turned this burned down Rome district into building his own pleasure palaces and stuff. What actually will not remain that long because they end up getting destroyed by the emperor, an emperor that's going to replace him later, Vespasian, who ends up paving the way to build in that same area something for the public, something little you might know of called the Colosseum.
Misrule. Nero may have played the lyre, but it's uncertain if he did so during the fire.
Yeah.
The Trojan horse did not exist.
Sad.
It is merely a story from Greek mythology made to exaggerate and mystify Greece's win over Troy, as there is no archaeological evidence to confirm its historical existence.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that'd be hard to prove or disprove. You're not going to have the archaeology of it. Now, what we do know is Troy did exist. And actually, we had not confirmed Troy's location until about 100 years ago. It was a archaeologist named Schliemann. I forgot his name, Heinrich. Forget his name from college. But they did find it and found that there was a lot of remnants of it being burned. So the Trojan Wars definitely happened and Troy existed. So I don't know, maybe something similar to it happened.
Christopher Columbus did not discover America. Long before Columbus arrived in 1492, numerous indigenous civilizations, such as the Aztec, Maya, Inca, and various tribes across North and South America, had been living on the continents for thousands of years. Yeah. These indigenous peoples discovered, explored, and developed these lands long before any Europeans arrived.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody thinks, though, that Columbus, like there was no one there. Like, no one really believes that. But discovered it, but like it looks like he's going to get to the Viking stuff. Yeah, it wasn't even the first European. So, but yeah, you got to go way back tens of thousands of years that we even have like actual recorded like artifacts and things of it. So
furthermore, Viking explorers led
Right.
by Leif Erikson established a settlement called Vinland in what is now Newfoundland, Canada, around the year 1000, nearly 500 years before Columbus.
Right.
The Middle
Big issue. And the Columbus thing does need to be talked about just for the fact that of its impact. Like the impact that the Vikings had in North America was very minimal. They didn't stick around. They actually got their butts kicked by the indigenous peoples there and end up leaving. But obviously the effect of what happens for Columbus is, enormous. Have you ever heard some of the other kind of fringe hypotheses about other civilizations that, not from the Americas that had come across the ocean? One I had heard, and I don't know what evidence it is, but I'd heard that maybe even like the Phoenicians, who were again great traders back in the ancient world, did they actually cross the Atlantic? Well, probably not, but I had heard that mentioned before. All right, what do we got here? Like Joan of Arc or something?
Newfoundland, Canada, around the year 1000, nearly 500 years before Columbus.
Right.
The Middle Ages were not an age of stagnation in human development. This age saw the establishment of the first universities in Europe, such as the University of Bologna, the University of Paris, and the University of Oxford, as well as great advancements in the fields of medicine and math in the Muslim and Indian world.
Oh, okay. Okay, I was about to say, what are they talking about? The Middle Ages as a whole? Or are they talking about Europe? Because usually people think of that. Now, Europe was cut off from a lot of the connections of the more successful empires of the world at that time. When Rome fell, in the West in 476, that definitely decreased Western Europe's access to some of the longer trade routes and some of those connections. But yeah, it is absolutely a great time. The Islamic world, the Abbasid Caliphate is absolutely killing it. You're going to have, India, you're going to have China still thriving. The Mongols are about to connect everything. Mali Empire, down in Africa. Yep. The Middle Ages is fine to say, but it's the Dark Ages. That's where we get a big time Eurocentrism.
Newton did not come up with his theory of gravity when an apple fell down from a tree and hit his head. Newton did see an apple fall, which led him to consider why objects fall towards the earth, but there is no evidence it hit him. George Washington did not cut down a cherry tree during his youth. The cherry tree is an anecdote meant to illustrate Washington's honesty and integrity. It served as a moral example for young Americans, emphasizing the value of truthfulness. It's like our Americans like lame way of trying to make our own mythology of the founding of our country. We don't have a lot of the cool mythological stories about our founders that other civilizations and empires have. So that came out. Where did that story come out of the cherry tree? It was like a kid's book or something, but it was like, our founders were these, noble guys that never lied and all this and the romanticism of it. All right. What do we got about Franklin? What, didn't invent electricity? Come on. Benjamin Franklin did not discover electricity, as ancient Greeks had already observed static electricity, and by the 17th and early 18th centuries, European scientists like William Gilbert, Otto von Guericke, and Stephen Gray had made significant discoveries about electricity.
I did not know a lot of this.
Ninjas did not wear all...
Okay, I did not know that. And, obviously he experimented, he had a famous experiment with it, but... Okay, ninjas? Oh no, what's wrong with ninjas now?
And Stephen Gray had made significant discoveries about electricity. Ninjas did not wear all black outfits as they are portrayed in modern media. Historical ninjas typically dressed to blend into their surroundings, wearing practical and close-fitting clothing appropriate to their environment and missions. Ancient Greek and Roman statues were not all white. They were originally painted in vibrant colors, a practice known as polychromy.
See, here's my thing though. I think them just being white marble looks way cooler. Okay, like this one, this is Octavian, this is Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. I think it looks terrible painted. I think it looks gross. They also look super freaky to me. And I think they even painted the skin, didn't they, as well? Like skin. I don't like the painting. I think it's way better just with white marble. What do you
Traces of paint found on many sculptures reveal that these statues were not the white marble we see today, but colored to enhance their lifelike appearance.
So I don't like that.
During the Middle Ages, most people weren't unhygienic. Public bathhouses were common in towns and cities, and in urban centers, waste management was a big concern. Furthermore, religious practices often emphasized cleanliness as a part of spiritual and ritual purity.
However, it said that they did not bathe quite as much. If I remember right, Marco Polo, when he comes back from Asia after spending decades there, it was written in his book that they bathed way more, like in China. Oh gosh, what do we got? Torture?
Torture devices were less commonly used than often portrayed, and many famous devices like the Iron Maiden are likely more myth than reality. The use of chastity belts during the Middle Ages was not a common practice. They were introduced by a German engineer as a form of satire during the 15th century, so it's very unlikely that its use during the Middle Ages was as common as it's normally portrayed.
That's so funny. So was the myth, I don't know if I ever thought that was real, but was, well, the idea that you like put this on your daughter or something?
The 100 Years' War did not last 100 years. It lasted 116 years, from 1337 to 1453.
I just think we need to ban naming wars after days or months or years. Anyway, it's lame. Let's get more creative.
Despite its name suggesting a century-long conflict. The Black Death was not spread by rats, but by the fleas on said rats, which transmitted the plague bacteria to humans.
Thanks, Mongols. Thanks, Mongols. So they came across trade routes. But the other thing about rats is rats are actually really good swimmers and can swim onto boats. And then rats love getting on boats because they're full of, you know, food and stuff like that for the trade. So they would get on that. But yep, the fleas on the rats. Berlin Wall, what do we got?
Of the Berlin Wall did not cause the unification of Germany. Although it marked the beginning of the end of Germany's division, the formal reunification of East and West Germany occurred on October 3rd, 1990.
But it was a major symbolic thing. The Berlin Wall was seen as like the physical manifestation of the Cold War. Berlin already itself was like a microcosm of the entire Cold War. And when that's going down in 89, that was a huge year already because Soviet Union was really losing a lot of its grip over the other communist states and kind of their sphere of influence. But it was a major thing to see. All right, what we got here?
Cowboys are portrayed in a very East and West Germany occurred on October 3rd, 1990. Cowboys are portrayed in a very exaggerated manner in modern media, often being described as lawless and chaotic people. All
right, cue our friend Joe, the cynical historian who is a PhD, and his PhD dissertation was on violence in the Old West. He told me some crazy stuff about how the level of violence really was absurd, though.
Many frontier towns had organized communities with relatively low crime rates, and cowboys often worked as cattle herders and ranchers, contributing to the development of the American West. They also did not wear cowboy hats. Joseph Ignatius.
Yeah, those came. I forgot where that came from. However, at least from what cynical historian told me, though, it was an incredible amount of violence. So, all right, Guillotin.
Guillotine did not die by the guillotine. He died in 1814 of natural causes. Not all gladiators.
It was named after him. The National Razor. Fun fact, France's last execution was in the 1970s by the guillotine. Not all gladiators were slaves. Okay. Yep.
Gladiators were slaves. He died in 1814 of natural causes. Not all gladiators were slaves. Many were volunteers who chose to fight for fame, money, or to pay off debts, though many slaves and prisoners of war also became gladiators.
Right. So, yeah, it was incredibly well-paying. You know, like the tens of millions of dollars or whatever that a boxer can get today. That was kind of like what it was for gladiators. You know, you could get like hundreds of thousands for fights if you were one of the good popular ones. So, yeah, very, very lucrative.
No one actually jumped off buildings during the crash of the stock market in 1929. Yeah. Germany did not invade.
Fortunately, I do showed. Have you guys seen The World Wars? It's a 3-part series that History Channel did. And the second episode starts with the Great Depression, and the opening scene is like this stockbroker jumps off. So I don't know, again, where that story had come from. I mean, I thought it would have come from somewhere, but what we do know, though, is there were suicides and stuff, unfortunately, from people that had their lives ruined from that. All right, well, let's see. Did not invade the Soviet Union, what, in the winter or something? Is that what they're going to say here? We'll see. Now, they didn't start it in the winter. You start in the, really, you want to start your invasion if you are going to invade Soviet Union about June, because the big problem is, especially in the modern era, is if you want big tanks and stuff, the ground has to be a lot harder, and there's some muddy regions where you can get stuck if everything isn't completely dried
jumped
out.
Off buildings during the crash of the stock market in 1929. Germany did not invade the Soviet Union in the winter during World War II. Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union, known as Operation Barbarossa, began in June 1941.
Right.
Lady Godiva.
Yeah, again, because you need the hard ground. But they still were there. It went into the winter. Okay, who's this?
Godiva did not ride a horse naked through Coventry as a form of June 1941. Lady Godiva did not ride a horse naked through Coventry as a form of protest against high taxes.
I don't know.
Historical evidence suggests that this famous event was likely a myth rather than a factual event. Marco Polo did not introduce pasta to Italy after his travels to China. The myth began in a newsletter published by an association of American pasta makers called the Macaroni Journal. Pasta was common in Italy many years before the birth of Marco Polo. Spices were not—
I didn't know that was a thing. I'm very interested in like Marco Polo and his travels and stuff, but I never even heard of that one. Didn't they have like a form of pasta in Asia like already though? Anyone know about that?
Pasta was common in Italy many years before the birth of Marco Polo. Spices were not used in the Middle Ages to mask the flavor of rotten meat. During the Middle Ages, spices were an extremely expensive and luxurious item, and those who could afford them could also afford meat. Julius Caesar—
Preservation was a big one too. Yeah, but I mean, to cover rotten meat, I don't know, but obviously to make it better, but yeah, meat preservation especially.
The expensive and luxurious item, and those who could afford them could also afford meat. Julius Caesar did not invent the Caesar salad. The dish was invented in Tijuana by a man named Caesar Cardini, an Italian-American cook. Ronald Reagan was never a serious candidate for the role of Rick Blaine in the 1942 film Casablanca. Although an initial studio press mentioned Reagan, the studio was already aware that Reagan would be unavailable due to his incoming military service. Hitler did not create the Autobahn as the construction began in the Weimar Republic era. Hitler significantly expanded and promoted the Autobahn for economic and propaganda purposes once he came to power.
Well, public works programs. So, you know, they came in, the Nazis started coming into power in the 20s. Later 20s after they got rounded up and, you know, after the beer hall push and went to jail. But public works programs, which was common in other places too. France was doing it, the United States doing it, basically building projects for public use. And yeah, it was kind of a thing to get people employed because unemployment was so bad, and then also give a service back to the community.
Mussolini did not make the trains run on time. Many of the punctuality and efficiency achievements of Italy's rail system were either exaggerated by propaganda or attributed to work that began before his rise to power. So
what the idea was like this idea that, okay, people don't like Mussolini, like everything about him, but the trains run on time. Basically, it's a metaphor that we don't like how things are, like how he does things, but things get done.
All American colonists wanted independence from Britain. The colonists were split into three main groups: patriots, who supported independence; loyalists, who remained loyal to Britain; and neutrals, who were either indifferent or undecided.
It was about a quarter, from what I remember, with the loyalists, which, by the way, the British thought there would be more of them, the loyalists, and did kind of think that they would have an advantage of the fact that when they come in to try to put down the revolution, that there'd be a lot more people on the inside supporting them. But in fact, a lot of them really didn't show up to actually help fight. And a lot of them, you might have heard, bailed. They left some of those areas. A lot of them went to Canada, where you had more loyalist sympathies.
Walt Disney was not cryogenically frozen. He was cremated, and his ashes were spread across the Forest Lawn Memorial Park in California.
What? He's not in like Cinderella's castle? That would have been awesome.
The Mayan calendar did not predict the end of the world in 2012. Scholars and experts have clarified that this date simply represents the end of a cycle and the beginning of a new one. Much like our own calendar starts a new year after December 31st. Fun time, though, if you remember 2012. I had just been in a few years into teaching, and one of the things I used to do until 2020 is they had those, if you remember, I mean, hopefully you're not that young, but that the world was going to end, that the Maya had somehow like predicted it. And I used to do like a historical debunking thing, assignment for that. Everyone in the colonial era wore wigs. Wearing wigs, or perukes, was primarily a fashion trend among the wealthy and elite classes, including politicians, lawyers, and merchants, particularly in the 17th and 18th centuries. The Pilgrims did not land at Plymouth Rock
Something that, by the way, during the French Revolution became common to like scold people for wearing those, because it was like, what? You think you're better than us? And like rip off their wigs. All right, Plymouth Rock. Yeah, not a real thing.
Particularly in the 17th and 18th centuries. The Pilgrims did not land at Plymouth Rock first. They initially landed elsewhere, possibly in Provincetown. Plymouth Rock later became a symbolic site, representing the location where they eventually disembarked and settled. But it is not the precise spot of their first landing. The Vikings were not a unified group, but rather a collection of seafaring Norse tribes and communities from Scandinavia, including present-day Denmark, Norway, and Sweden.
By the way, one of the original videos I am currently working on right now is about Viking raids. So look out for that. And that is one of the things we do talk about. So
tribes and communities from Scandinavia, including present-day Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. The Spanish Inquisition did not kill millions of people. While it was responsible for persecuting and executing thousands, particularly Jews, Muslims, and heretics, the actual number of people killed is estimated to be in the tens of thousands.
Yeah. So it kind of happens with, especially around 1492, and it picks up as up until then, as the Christians, Catholics up from northern Spain had finished the Reconquista and kicking out pretty much the Muslims out of the country. But there was a thriving Jewish community that actually did quite well during those years and had their rights protected. And interesting thing that kind of ties into modern history is there was a large migration of Jewish people that came from that part of Spain and ends up going towards the Ottoman Empire, where rights were a lot more protected there than in Christian Europe as well.
Ferdinand Magellan did not complete the circumnavigation of the globe himself. While Magellan initiated the voyage in 1519 and led the expedition until his death in the Philippines in 1521, the circumnavigation was completed by his crew under the command of Juan Sebastian Elcano.
This guy I feel bad for in history because he has been totally forgotten, and he's the one that picks up because he's going to die. There's going to be a civil war in the Philippines and Magellan dies. I have no idea how this guy did not just become the guy that we talk about. This guy got screwed over by history, Elcano. I'm sorry, man.
Gladiators did not always fight to the death. While some matches ended in death, many were designed to entertain the audience without necessarily being fatal. The decision to kill a defeated gladiator was often influenced by the crowd's reaction and the wishes of the sponsor of the games.
Right. They also, as part of the events too, would kill animals. Exotic animals, which was a shame. But the primetime event was the human on human.
Isaac Newton did not exclusively invent calculus. He developed a form of calculus independently around the same time as Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz.
Isn't it said that he invented whatever to do with calculus when he was like a child, pretty much? He's like a young teen or something.
The Library of Alexandria was not destroyed in a single event. Instead, it suffered multiple episodes of damage and destruction over several centuries. These included fires, such as during the Roman conquest of Alexandria in 48 BCE,
Julius
and later
Caesar.
events, including attacks by various forces and the decline of the city.
Caesar. Wasn't there like a final one, though, that did it a lot? I'd have to look into that more.
The Roman Empire did not fall in a single event in 476 AD.
That just 476 is just the year that the final emperor was deposed.
The Western Roman Empire is often considered to have officially fallen in 476 AD, when the last Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was deposed by the Germanic chieftain Odoacer. The Eastern Roman Empire, or Byzantine Empire, continued to exist for nearly another 1,000 years until the fall of Constantinople in 1453.
What do you guys use for your fall of Rome date? 1453 or 476? All right, Van Gogh, what? Cut the ear and give it to someone?
Van Gogh did not cut off his entire ear. In December 1888, he severed part of his left ear, specifically the lower lobe, during a mental health crisis. He then wrapped the severed piece in cloth and delivered it to a woman at a nearby brothel.
That did happen?
Pilgrims and
that did happen? Oh, God. I was thinking, okay, I know about the ear, but like, did he not actually bring it to him? No, he actually was just kind of crazy, but he didn't cut off the whole ear. By the way, Van Gogh might be my favorite artist. I love Impressionism.
Then wrapped the severed piece in cloth and delivered it to a woman at a nearby brothel. The pilgrims...
How do you think she reacted? Do you think he got a date? She was like, "Aw, cute. Let's go out."
And Native Americans did not have an harmonious relationship. Initially, the Pilgrims had a relatively good relationship with the Wampanoag tribe, including the famous First Thanksgiving in 1621. However, conflicts and tensions eventually arose, leading to a series of disputes and wars, such as King Philip's War, which severely strained and often damaged relations between the two groups. Romans did not...
Another part of, I think that it was just kind of ingrained into this like desire for an American mythology. Kind of like what we were saying with the George Washington cutting down the cherry tree. I think there was just like a desperate want for that,
which severely strained and often damaged relations between the two groups.
That's why we learned history, though, right?
Romans did not exclusively speak Latin in their daily lives. While Latin was the official language of the Roman Republic and later the Roman Empire, and was used in government, literature, and legal matters, many Romans also spoke Greek as well as many other local languages.
For sure. It was an empire, but yeah. Oh, Henry VIII, what?
Henry VIII did not execute all his 6 wives,
No, not
only
all.
2 of them, while the others were either divorced, died in childbirth, or outlived him. Einstein's theory of relativity was not immediately accepted, but gradually gained widespread acceptance as it was tested and confirmed through experiments and observations.
I mean, that's how it's supposed to be, right? You bring up something new, you got to allow it to be debunked, right? It's got to be debunked. Otherwise, it holds its weight, right? So, I mean, that's just how science is supposed to work.
William Tell was not forced to shoot an apple of his son's head. According to the legend, Tell, a Swiss folk hero, was forced to perform this feat by a tyrannical ruler as a test of his skill and loyalty. The Bermuda Triangle is not inherently dangerous despite its portrayal in popular culture as a site of mysterious disappearances and incidents.
Look how big it is, though. You guys see that? It's like the size of the whole eastern United States, because Bermuda is Puerto Rico is the other part. I forgot what the southern part is. Aren't there storms though? I mean, when you get hurricanes, such a hurricane prone region, that's probably why, right?
Scientific investigations have largely debunked claims of supernatural dangers, attributing most reported incidents to natural phenomena, human error, and navigational challenges rather than any unique risk associated with the region.
This video was literally written by the lizard people.
The mafia never killed anyone by putting their feet in cement blocks and throwing them into the ocean. This is likely an urban legend made up to instill fear and panic among the communities in which the mafias resided. The phrase, "the British are coming," was not actually used by Paul Revere during his midnight ride. Historical accounts suggest he likely used a more discreet message to avoid alerting British patrols, as the British were seeking to arrest colonial leaders and seize supplies. If you want to discuss this video...
There's not a 50? You can't end on 49? Yeah, the Paul Revere thing probably said something like it. It was basically probably like get the militia ready, you know. That was his job. Like these towns all had militias, the Minutemen. So it was like you go to it, tell whoever's there, you got to get them together and then keep going. But whatever. All right, final thoughts. All right, that was a fun video to look at. I learned a handful of things there. That was really cool. I don't know how much I added. Tried to add a few more of the tidbits there, but anyway, good stuff. Always good to know what historical misconceptions are out there. That's why we study history, right? All right, but what are some other ones? I mean, I went through 49 of them there, but there are so many more. What are some of your other ones you think need to be shared? Because it's just not true. All right, we'll see y'all next time. Bye.